Hi, this is Brian Davis, McFarland Pheasants Brooder Manager. Taking you through a video tour. What we're looking at now is our newest facility, barns 8 and 9, basically a mirror image of each other. This is the control room. We're going to zoom in here a little bit to look at the control units. The gray box on the right is a photohelic that measures static pressure in the room and makes sure static pressure is even throughout. We run Honeywell units for our thermostats. Here we're looking at all the different switches throughout the room. Basically everything electrical has its own shut-off switch. Here we're approaching the A side door. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the water there. Same thing on the A side, we have the photohelic box. The box below it is our zone control for brooders. The yellow and blue phase-on box there is the speed control for our stir fans, the Honeywell thermostat, and then we also have the second timers for our fans and stir fans. Gray box on the right is the feed timer. Those again are the timers for our fans and stir fans. Here we're showing the static pressure rising in the barn on the photohelic. What happens is the static pressure increases, it goes past our limit, and then that machine opens and closes the air inlets, keeping static pressure constant in the room, which creates a good mixing of air, and the heat is distributed throughout the environment. We'll take a look inside the A room here. We're just getting this set up for chicks. Notice the bell waters are up high. We don't drop bell waters until about 3 days of age. We'll speed it up here a little bit. Down on the ground we have flats full of feed. Also you see our nipple lines there. The feed system in this barn is a chain drive feed system. The reason we went with the chain drive feed system is it actually increases feed space as birds are able to eat out of both sides of it. There are 9 brooders in this room. They're 30,000 BTUs each. We found that creates almost too much heat. We actually do better only running 5 of the 9 brooders. The lights in the barn are an LED. It's actually a blue spectrum bulb. When they dim, they'll dim to a more gray or a blue light. That's one of the air inlets. There's 3 inlets in the A room, and those are controlled by that photohelic with an actuator control arm. There's a picture of the actuator control arm. That's the door the birds move over to the B side from at 3 weeks. We open that door, shut the lights down on the A side, Turn lights up in the B side, and the birds actually walk themselves over. There's always a few stragglers that will push over at the end. Here is a look at our larger facilities. This is barn 6A. This barn will house, or will start actually, 20,000 chicks, whereas the room prior, that'll start 10,000 chicks. Basically going from 10,000 to 20,000, you double everything. Double the feed space, double the water space, twice as many brooders. This room is also controlled with a photohelic. We've found that that's the best way to maintain the best air possible for the birds and keep the heat distributed throughout the room. We also have stir fans in this room that help mix the air. Pretty similar setup for the most part. This room measures 50 by 100 feet, making it 5,000 square feet. We run 4 birds per square feet to start, making it 20,000 birds. Very similar setup as the first tour video, just essentially twice the size. This is a picture of the fan bank. We have a 24-inch fan, a 12-inch fan, and a 48-inch fan. The 48-inch fan very rarely runs. The only chance of that running would be on extremely hot days and where the birds are a little bit older, approaching that 3-week mark. This barn also has an LB White forced air heater. We use that more as a backup to our brooder heat in case we have a problem, that we have it set so that will kick on in case the temperature were to drop too low. These winches on the wall, those are to raise and lower the actual feed lines. Everything in this room is capable of raising to the ceiling so that we can bring a bobcat in here to clean out when needed. During clean out, all brooders are brought out of the barn and serviced, cleaned out, and made sure they're going to burn properly for the next group. Here we're going back to barn 9, and we're actually dumping ringneck pheasant chicks. These are day-old chicks. The way we do it is we bring the boxes in, we stack them by each brooder, then our staff will go in and we always count 1 square out of out of 3 boxes in each stack just to make sure that hatchery numbers are what they're telling us they should be, and at least we can catch something if something was off. After dumping, we carry the stacks of trays out. We turn the lights down during the dumping process. It keeps the birds closer to the brooders. As you're dumping, there's a solid chance that birds can get under your feet. Um, we don't want them wandering too far when there's so much traffic in the barn. We don't want to step on any. Our goal is to be as quiet as possible, quick as possible, without harming any birds. When we first dump the chicks, they will group pretty tight. As long as our temperatures are correct in the barn, those birds will spread right out when we leave the room, and everything should be good. We're starting this barn at about 93 or 94 degrees on the floor. And here's what the barn looks like after we've removed people, got everything out. These birds have been in there now for probably 10-15 minutes, and they're starting to move throughout the barn. Lights were brought back up. Now we'll move into a look at our French red-leg brooder facility. First, we'll look at what the room looks like before we bring birds into. So this is set up, ready to go. We tend to keep these rooms darker. We don't use the overhead light quite as much. We rely more on our brooder lights. It keeps the birds calmer and keeps the birds where we want them to be in the barn and out of the corners. French redlegs are substantially smaller chicks, so we tend to use more hand feeding techniques. We do have an automatic feed system in this room. We actually won't put the pans on that system until the birds are old enough where they will not crawl up inside the feed system and get stuck. You can see in that shot that there's red feed flats underneath the feed system. We will run the feed system to keep those flats filled, but we always run it manually. We would never run it automatic. The noise of the feed system can scare the birds at a younger age as well. This room also has an LB white in it for backup heat if our brooders were to fail. As French get older, they do have a tendency to fly up, and they will knock brooders out from time to time and knock out brooder lights. So as they get older, we will bring in the overhead lights a little more, and the brooder heat basically gets turned off or turned down, and will go just on the LB white forced air. That door there is what we open when we move the birds to the B room at 4 weeks old. Every other feed pan is actually shut off, so we're only using half the feed space on that feed line right now. As they get older, we will move the pans so that all pans are working and all possible feed pans are installed on the line. And here we are about to place the chicks. We've already moved the boxes of chicks into the room. Same idea, put stacks near each brooder, even stacks throughout the room to each brooder. Then we're going to count a couple squares in each box. And then we dump it underneath the brooder to make sure the birds find the heat as soon as possible.